Hello, everybody. I think the recording sign is the indication that we are ready to start on this fabulous night of nights, the veritable Logies of the ACT Environmental Awards. So welcome to you all. Thank you for choosing to share your Sunday evening with us. Yet again on Zoom, where would you rather be but at home? We're really looking forward to a fabulous evening, star-studded guests, and some amazing awards for these absolutely fabulous environmental champions. And then, of course, all topped off by the world's best practice auction that no doubt you've all been bidding furiously on. So get those last minute bids in, time is running. Look, let me begin this evening by acknowledging that we are here on Ngunnawal land and that we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, virtually, and the deep and continuing connection to country. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and feel very honoured to be able to be on this land and learn from the wisdom of those that come many generations before us. Tonight, I would like to welcome the many VIPs we have online as well too. Welcome to MLA Rebecca Vassarotti, Minister for Environment and Heritage. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, MLA Shane Rattenbury, Minister for Emissions Reduction, Energy and Water. Thank you for spending your precious Sunday evening with us. Thank you to MLA Peter Cain. I think you're on the line as well too, Shadow Minister for Planning. Great that we can all come together for such an important purpose. And 2021, what a year. Oh, actually, oh my goodness. And I've forgotten the celebrity members that are joining us tonight too. Podcasters with the most, Julie Bolton and Ryan Lungu, who you'll know from the most acclaimed podcast, Environmental Heroes. And it's not just because I was one of them. It's a great series. Everyone on it was absolutely excellent. Ryan, you'll know from Canberra Environment Centre. Julie, you'll know from just about everywhere with the many hats that she wears, from the circular economy to Monash Sustainability Institute. So just an absolute gift to have you both with us tonight. So where are we? 2021, we nearly made it. We're nearly there, people. It's been a tough year. Lots to deal with, lots of challenges, but so many achievements. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank members of the board, past and present, the many volunteers that have come together to fight for ACT's environmental health, the member groups that form part of the ACT Conservation Council, and especially Executive Director Helen Oakey. We all know Helen. She just puts in an amazing contribution, 120% all the time. We're just so lucky to have her. So thank you for all your efforts this year. And I'd like to hand over to Helen to take tonight away as our MC. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a fabulous evening.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everyone. For those of you who don't know, Sarah actually just forgot to introduce herself, and she's the newly elected president of the board of the Conservation Council. She's also heads up the ACF Community Canberra group, and she's also on the ACF National Council and board. So she comes to us with lots on her plate, but also some fabulous connections and a great deal of enthusiasm for community engagement and for engagement and stakeholder engagement and working in partnerships with people. And we're really honoured to have her as our new board president. I'd also like to say a big thank you to our outgoing board president, Gordon McAllister, who's also on tonight, for his contributions over the last 12 months and beyond that. He's been on our board for 3 years. He is a wonderful person to work with. He's extraordinarily kind and thoughtful, and I've really enjoyed having him in that position over the last 12 months. Thank you and hello to all the other board members who are on here. I can see quite a few, but I'd like to make special mention to Ian Falconer, who's been on our board for over 20 years and has just left us this year. Once again, Ian, thank you for your contribution. It's people like you who give the board the experience and the governance history and the expertise that really strengthens our organisation, and we really appreciate the contribution you've made, and we wish you all the very best in your board retirement, although I'm sure it will be very full with your other commitments, but thank you again. So I just briefly wanted to have a quick overview of what our achievements have been this year, and some of those achievements, many of those achievements are built on the back of contributions by staff and board members and executive directors in years gone by. And I don't want to spend too much time doing this, but as many of you might know, this is the 40th year of the Conservation Council. We turned 40 in around October. It was just after we came out of our second lockdown, and it was very difficult to organise the big public event that we wanted to. We wanted to roll that into Spring Mingle this year, but unfortunately that wasn't going to happen. But we did turn 40 nevertheless. 42 if you count sort of, you know, the Environment Centre and the Cons Council coming together, but actually technically the document says 40 years this year. So one of the big things that was announced earlier this year was the ACT CAT plan, which is work that culminated in the delivery of a CAT containment policy right across the ACT. It's due to be implemented next year. And actually, you know, special mention to that one to, I think Claire Henderson's on the call, one of our former EDs, and Larry O'Loughlin, but particularly Claire started that work many, many years ago in collaboration with Canberra Ornithology Group. And so while it wasn't everything that we hoped it would be, that policy, it certainly was a step in the right direction. And I think it's the beginning of a bigger conversation about the role that cats play when they're out in our nature reserves. One of the other big achievements for this year was really the work that we did engaging with the Evo Energy gas rollout over the next 5 years, and the money that they were going to spend investing in new gas in the ACT, and really slowing that up. And also the policies that were announced both pre and post-election with regards to phasing out gas across the ACT. Sorry, I thought that was the fire alarm about to start up, but it's not, so that's okay. So with that work is still happening, and you know, it'll be another couple of years before we actually see how that actual phase out, the transition phase out, will happen right across the ACT over the next 20 years. You know, once again, we wish it was happening in 10 years, but it's going to happen probably more like 20. But I think, you know, we need to be moving forward as quickly as we can, and the work around that will continue in the ACT. I'd also like to make special mention to the work that's been done on the Lawson grasslands. The Lawson Grasslands project has been pretty much delayed by 12 months due to some amazing work by Jeff Robertson and his colleagues at Friends of Grasslands, and in particular Raina Raywinkle, who's just put in an amazing effort to help protect those grasslands. That fight is still ahead of us, and we'd invite you to stay engaged in that campaign going forward. It's not going to be an easy one to win, but it won't be for lack of trying. And a big thank you to the member groups that we've worked with on that over the last 6 to 12 months. It's about to all come to a head, I think, in the next 2 months at least. Of course, for me, I get the pleasure of saying thank you to our staff and our volunteers for their commitment this year. We had a big hole in our year by being in lockdown again. At least half the staff have got primary school age children at home, and for those of you who know what that feels like, you can imagine it was quite difficult just to keep things going. But thank you for your amazing efforts this year. You constantly amaze me with your effort, your integrity, and also your amazing good humour. We have so much fun here in the office. It really is a lovely place to work. So I, for one, was very appreciative to be able to come back into the office and be with everybody again in the last 2 months. It's been really great. And also to the volunteers. And we have one particular volunteer, Robert, who works on our database, and he just comes in, week out, he comes in and he works with us, and he's just a wonderful person to have around, and also just makes such a great contribution. So that's about it from me for the moment. I'm sorry if I've forgotten thanks to anybody, but we do appreciate all of the contributions that people make. I probably should say at this point, we really value as well the financial contributions that people make if they can't get involved as volunteers or if they can't work on campaigns, because the funding that we raise that is put together with the funding that we receive government is what enables us to employ staff and to keep doing what we do. And without the contributions from the Canberra community, we would not be able to continue the work that we do. So those contributions are invaluable. And it's because of the fact that we need to raise that money that we do events such as the online auction that we've got going at the moment, which, by the way, is due to close in 3 hours and 15 minutes. So if you haven't got your bids in, just while you're listening, just sneakily go and check out the website and have another look. Maddie will drop the link into the chat bar here if you haven't got it handy. Okay, so it's my great pleasure to welcome MLA Rebecca Vassarotti, Minister for the Environment and Heritage, who's actually sitting next to me tonight in the office. We thought we might do this bit together. And Rebecca has kindly agreed to come and talk a little bit about some of the environmental milestones in the ACT over the past year by government and community stakeholders. And she's also going to announce our ACT Environment Award winners for 2021. So Rebecca, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Helen, and it is lovely to see everyone. It's sad that we aren't able to do this in person, but it is lovely to see all of you online. And while we are online, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the land of the Ngunnawal people and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. I think when we work in the area of environment, we really do recognise the incredible knowledge that First Nations people bring to our understanding of this beautiful country that is stolen land and was, is and always will be Aboriginal land. I would also just like to acknowledge my parliamentary colleagues, Shane Rattenbury, who is my ministerial colleague. I'm not sure if Peter Cain is on the line or not, but really great to have interest across the Parliament. So I've been asked to share a few pieces of information about where we are at the end of 2021 in relation to our commitment to environment, and it has been an incredibly challenging year, I think, for everyone. And at this point, I really just want to thank everyone in our community for everything that everyone has done to keep ourselves, our families and our community safe. I think that we should be extraordinarily proud in terms of living in a community that is really caring and compassionate. And one of the interesting things of COVID is it has really seen people reconnect with their green spaces, with their local environments, and really recognise how important the natural environment is to our health and well-being. So I think that is a really exciting thing. And as well as that, while we have all been, living through COVID, we also know that there are a whole lot of the challenges in the environment area haven't stopped. While, climate change, while some of the impacts around emissions were positively impacted by some of the changes to our lifestyles, we know that climate change continues, and there is a need for ongoing climate action. This year, we've also been managing with different challenges, particularly around La Nina. And so while the city looks beautiful and green, we know that not everything that is green is particularly what we want growing. So we do have particular, challenges that we face. So in terms of some of the things that the government has been doing, I was really delighted as part of the 2021-22 budget that we were able to provide secure and stable funding for the community delivery of environmental outcomes, particularly through our catchment groups, and being able to provide them with ongoing funding so they can plan for and understand the value that our government puts on the work of our community volunteers. And as well as that, it's been really fantastic to be able to expand the ACT Environment Grants Program. That program hasn't had an increase in funding since its commencement, so we will be able to, we have been able to significantly increase the funding in relation to that, which is fantastic. And we've also been able to provide support for some additional organisations such as ACT Wildlife in terms of the complementary work that they do. And as I mentioned, particularly with the impact of La Nina, we've really seen the need to invest strongly in the fight against invasive species within the territory. And we will see 5 new staff that are dedicated to biosecurity rapid response. And this will really enhance the capacity of our biosecurity and rural services to coordinate, to respond to, and to manage the biosecurity threats as they impact on the ACT's environmental, agricultural and social values as well. And we really know that this investment comes at a crucial time, as we have seen 2 years of above average rainfall, and we've seen a number of new and emerging invasive plants. It has been really exciting that we have actually been able to establish new grassland reserves, and we will, as a government, continue to deliver on environmental biodiversity offset within the ACT. And so in this budget, we've seen the establishment of 2 new reserves, Najang Maja out at Kenny and Bajan Galaji at the Franklin grasslands. And so we've seen the final landscape plans for these reserves that were released in 2021, and we're going to start seeing the commencement of infrastructure in 2022, which is really exciting. Helen's mentioned the CAP plan, which was released in May this year, and we see this as a really important part of the journey. This will set us on the journey as a jurisdiction to see territory-wide CAP containment. And so there will be a range of other things that will happen, including improving community education, improving the desexing rates of domestic cats. We will see all cats needing to be registered, and compulsory cat containment across the ACT after July next year for all new cats, as well as looking at feral cat management. There's a lot of work that's going on in relation to threatened species, and the development of an ACT government threatened species strategy is in its early stages of development, and that will really help us shape the ACT government's priorities. We're really excited that we will be leading national coordination of the Gangang cockatoo recovery, having secured $125,000 from the Australian government to undertake that work. And I'm not sure if you've seen the footage of the breeding colony of the grassland earless dragons that was established in Tidbinbilla Nature Reserve during May this year. It's really exciting to see, and we've had the first hatchlings happen in October, which was great. Obviously, we continue the work around bushfire recovery, and so almost 2 years on from the 2019-2020 Oromo Valley fire, the landscape is recovering, and we are seeing a coordination of actions to restore, protect and learn from our impacted natural and cultural landscapes. So we've seen a lot of effort and resources gone into biodiversity conservation through the bushfire recovery program, and that's included monitoring and protecting threatened species of plants, frogs and fauna, such as the broad-toothed rat and the rake's crayfish. We've seen resources invested into the natural generation of native floral species and communities through the invasive plant control. And we've seen a range of other work to prevent the degradation and the loss of the ACT's alpine bogs and fens communities through ongoing on-ground stabilisation and protective actions. We are really excited about what's happening, what will be happening in 2022. And I'll just very, very briefly just touch on a couple of our priorities. We will be working on a capital food and fibre strategy that will be released in the first half of 2022, and will provide a roadmap for a sustainable, resilient, innovative and secure agricultural system for the ACT and the capital region. So this development of the strategy has begun with the release of a discussion paper. We've had consultations in November, through November and December with key stakeholders, and we will be engaging with the public through early 2022. We're focusing on a refresh of the ACT Environment Grants Program. With the expansion of the grants program, we wanted to have a look at how we can ensure that that really is meeting the needs and making it easier for you in relation to how you go through the process of applying for grants. We're also looking at the release of a natural resource management plan for the ACT. That work has started and has been informed by the extensive consultation with community, including feedback from the farming traditional custodians and broader Aboriginal communities, volunteers and NRM organisations. So I know that many of you have contributed to that already. And so that will be released in mid-2022 with the plan focusing on outcomes related to natural resource management planning that include looking at the state and the condition of the natural resources of the ACT, what are the existing and the future threats, what are the most appropriate actions to address those threats, and what are the stakeholders' aspirations for natural resource management in the ACT. finally, I just wanted to touch on the really exciting work in relation to the Woodlands Learning Centre with the Mulligan's Flat Woodlands Sanctuary, which is a partnership with the ACT Government, the Woodlands and Wetlands Trust and the ANU. It is a real gem. And so the partnership is constructing a woodland learning centre out in Throsby that is due to be open in the first quarter of 2022. I was lucky enough a couple of weeks ago to go out and have a look at it, and you could really start to get a sense of what a beautiful educational facility that is. So we're really excited to, while it has been slightly delayed because of the COVID lockdown and wet weather, very soon we'll all be able to share in that beautiful resource. So I think that just, gives you a little bit of a smattering of some of the work that is happening. We absolutely recognise that the work in environmental management is a partnership between government and community. We would not be able to do the work that we did without the thousands of hours of volunteer contributions, whether it is sitting on the board of the Conservation Council, getting out and pulling out some weeds with your local catchment groups and everything in between. So thank you so much for everything that you do. It has been a really challenging year, and 2022 will continue to be challenging, but as a community, I think we've demonstrated what we can achieve when we have deep, respectful and mutual relationships and a really strong partnership. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, and I'm sure that if anyone's got questions about any of that, then the Minister will be happy to take them, perhaps not tonight, but I know she tends to make herself very accessible. So, and in fact, if you wanted to buy some of her time and the other Minister on the call, I think they're only going at $240 for a morning walk up Mount Ainslie with pastries, isn't it? It is. You have to bid $250 to win that one, I think, at the moment. So,
no, and it's up to $500. Come on.
Oh, okay. Is it? Oh my God. Okay, they're not free anymore. Priceless. Okay. I'm out of touch. All right. Thank you, Minister. Okay, so we're going to turn our minds to the Environment Awards, and I'm very pleased that we've got some people on the line who are going to participate. I'm just checking to see if we've got one very special person. I don't think she's quite made it back from her bushwalk yet, but that's okay. I would like to just take this opportunity to welcome MLA Peter Cain. Peter's just joined us, and as we mentioned earlier, he is the MLA for Ginninderra. Thank you for joining us, Peter. There you are. You're looking like a podcast operator as well with those headphones. Okay, so we're just going to get on to our awards, and I'd firstly like to start by acknowledging everybody who nominated or was nominated for an award this year. It's been an odd year again. I think it's been difficult sometimes to get particular activities going. There are some people who've just continued and persisted and worked, which is what we need to do. We can't just stop because things are difficult. We have to just keep highlighting the issues and the concerns and the campaigns that we work on. So thank you to everybody who nominated for your time and your efforts, and for highlighting local talents, your local talent, and for putting your work, your time and your effort towards protecting our local environment, our national environment in some cases, and of course our global environment, because we're all part of something bigger. And everything that we do in the ACT is actually about something bigger as well. It's about protecting our planet against the climate crisis and about the extinction crisis that we're facing. And it's really awful to be able to wrap it all up in two crises, but that's sort of pretty much where we're landing at the moment. So it's really important for us to just take a little bit of time to acknowledge the work that people do. I don't think that these people wouldn't do this work if they didn't get an award. I know that they would continue to do this work because the rewards are far and beyond even just a little bit of public acknowledgement. I know that people are motivated by their deep concern and their deep passion for what we need to protect. But it's nice occasionally to have a little bit of public acknowledgement as well. So thank you for putting your hands up. I'd also like to just take the opportunity to thank the panel, the judging panel. So the judging panel is traditionally made up of our former Environmentalist of the Year, which last year was Annie Close, who is a Stop Adani 350 campaigner, and the 2020 Young Environmentalist of the Year, Frederick McGrath-Weber, who was, he works, Frederick has a property out in the Majura Valley, and our board member, Peter Otterson, for his ongoing contribution to this process. Thank you to the three of you for the time that you took to review all of the nominations. Again, it's these small contributions along the way that really make things keep ticking along. I would encourage people to show their appreciation for the winners. You can either clap out loud, you can do a little bit of a visual clap on screen, or you can put your little clapping hand up on Zoom. So it's not quite what we had in mind. We love to be up on the rooftop at Lena Carmel Lodge with the sun shining down and a wine in our hands, but it's better than not doing it at all. So I would encourage you to do that. So for the announcement of the winners, for the nominees and the winners, I'm going to throw back to the minister sitting next to me, who's going to be presenting the awards tonight. I was hoping that we would have been joined. I'll tell that story in a minute in case she turns up. I'll just hold off.
Should we do the second one?
No, let's do the first one.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, well, look, yes, this is these are always one of the best jobs that you get to do in terms of acknowledging some incredible work of people in our local community. And the first award that we've got today is the Moira and the Moira and John Rowland Young Environmentalist of the Year Award. And so we have two amazing nominees for this award, in Jessica Fordyce for her efforts for diverting food from landfill and redirecting it to vulnerable community members, and Annika Reynolds for her work at Green Law, facilitating major law reform and legal education projects. So I have in my hand the envelope, and I will open it and announce the winner.
It's a bit like the Logies here.
It's very much like, probably more like the Academy Awards.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but I'll make sure I get the right one.
Don't fall over in your high heels.
No, that's right. That's right. So I'm really delighted to announce the winner of the award is Jessica, for all of her efforts in facilitating relationships between food suppliers and charities to divert food from landfill and redirect unused food to vulnerable community members. So thank you. So big congratulations, Jess.
Thank you.
And congratulations also to Annika, who is a shining light in the young law movement, and I know is going to continue to contribute amazing things over the next 10 years, 20 years. I don't know how long, Annika. Congratulations, Jessica. I'm delighted to say that Philippa Rowland has just joined us online. Philippa, are you there?
Yes, I am.
So, Philippa, I'm just going to throw to you now. Hello, lovely to see you. We've just announced the winner of the Moira and John Rowland Young Environmentalist of the Year Award. And Philippa is Moira and John's daughter, and she is based in Adelaide. And I just thought it might be nice this year to take a little bit of extra time out to reflect on who Moira and John Rowland were and what they contributed. And Philippa is eminently qualified to just chat to us for a couple of minutes about that background. So thank you for joining us, Philippa. It's lovely to see you. You're looking very rosy-cheeked from your bushwalk, I have to say.
Yeah, for those of you who know Adelaide, I've just bolted from the third waterfall at Morialta Falls, where I had a dip because those creeks are still running at the moment, which is amazing at this time of the year in Adelaide. So forgive me looking a bit pink and bothered. And you're going to get it sort of straight off the cuff because me and my notes are not united, so that's life. Some of you may have known my parents, John and Moira Rowland. They were both diplomats in their own right. They met in Washington. My mother at that point had two categories of men. She was never going to marry. She was never going to marry a diplomat, and she was never going to marry an Australian. And then she met my dad, and that was the end of that. So we grew up in different parts of the world, but wherever we were, we religiously went bushwalking. If we didn't go walking on Sunday, we went on Saturday, and we often did both. My father had grown up on a sheep station out of Armidale and was fairly infamous for deciding at the drop of a hat that we might camp. And he would go to a supermarket and buy a shower curtain, some string and some clothes pegs, and rig us up a pretty decent camp in the lee of a rock. So while we had a privileged childhood. I'm deeply grateful it was one that was also close to nature, close to the environment. And we grew up knowing that both parents were very passionate about care for the environment. So when they retired and came, that was my daughter and her friend about to come in here at top volume, I'm sorry. They came back to Canberra and got involved in the environment movement. So for those in Canberra would have known, my father was involved in the forestry working group in a range of activities. Some of you may not know, he hosted a conference on the Antarctic, which was the conference, the international conference that banned mining in Antarctica, which at this point still stands, but it's one of those lines in the sand that will only stay with dedication to hold that line because the pressures, are large against such protections. And my mother was involved, he was in the Conservation Council, my mother in the Environment Centre, and she established the movement against uranium mining and was involved in a lot of activities, including reconciliation and protection of the environment. But I think her passion to prevent radioactive contamination of the entire world and to learn the lessons of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Chernobyl, there've been more than you can wish in terms of where we are. And I think one would never imagine you would be glad your parents were not still around, but I'm glad my mother wasn't around when we signed the nuclear submarine deal and when we approved a radioactive waste dump in Kimber. There is still a chance of halting that, but only by supporting the Bangala native title. They've got a judicial right of review to try and overturn that decision. So when they both passed, I righted a wrong by taking my mother back and burying her next to my dad. And if you ever go the back way from Canberra to the Snow through Dalgety, there's St James Beloco. They're both resting under a tree at St James Beloco if you want to go and say hello. And I think the award was just a way of trying to pay it forward in the hope that recognising the brave young people who stand up and speak out at the moment, they've got a lot to give and we've got a lot to answer them for. Or is that the right way around? You know what I mean. That's enough, Helen. Thank you,
Philippa. So eloquent as always. Thank you so much. And thank you for your contribution with the award. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and just out of interest, can I ask who won this year?
So we had two nominees. We had Jessica Fordyce. Jessica, would you like to give a wave? You're there.
Hello, how are you?
Annika Reynolds, who's also, I think, on the call. I'm not sure if Annika's still there. I think she was. Yep, there she is. And Jessica was this year's winner, but both very worthy nominees.
Lovely. Well
and thank you. I think it's just really lovely for our nominees to hear a little bit about your parents, because sometimes we label awards, but we just forget to tell the story of who sits behind them. So thank you for doing that for us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Before we're both too much older, I'll fulfil my promise and just do a brief synopsis, a bit less.
Okay. I don't want to nag you too much.
No, please do.
Thank you, Philippa. Lovely to see you. Okay, I'm going to throw back to the Minister now. This is the big one.
All right, and I just to also reflect on that, I think hopefully for Jess and Annika, this award means that it's just the beginning, that you'll be able to do the incredible work and that Moira and John, showed as role models. Okay, so here we are for Environmentalists of the Year award, and we have a number of amazing people that have been nominated for this award. So I am going to quickly run through that list. So they include Millie Sutherland Sains for her work in reintroduced threatened species to critically endangered habitats in the ACT. I actually think Millie might be featuring on ABC News tonight, talking about some of the great work that she's doing around at Mulligan's Flat. So if we get we finish up in time, make sure you check that out. Jean Casburn, for her campaign efforts to protect Blewett's Block from development, was also featured on a recent ABC news as well. We've got Dr. Brooke Clinton for her development of capital scraps to expand composting in the ACT. We've also got a nominee for Kirsty Young for her efforts in establishing and running the Repair Cafe under Sea Change at Tuggeranong. Dr. Don Fletcher for his efforts in leading citizen science projects for protecting the Rosenberg's goanna. Dr. Janet Salisbury for her efforts of advancing the Women's Climate Congress. Linda Groom for her efforts to protect Kosciuszko's National Park from introduced horses. And finally, John Ive for advancing sustainable agriculture in the region. So what an incredible diverse range of people doing work in many different areas. And so if we have the drum roll going, opening. All right, so look, a huge congratulations to all the nominees who have all done such incredible work, but I'm really delighted to announce the winner is John Ives for his efforts in developing, demonstrating and promoting techniques to enhance and conserve regional environments while delivering strong agricultural production objectives. So big congratulations, John.
Good, thanks very much.
Congratulations, John.
Yeah, thank you.
For those of you who are wondering why we're not letting our winners speak, it's not that we're not going to let them speak. We are going to interview them with our podcasters with the mostest in a few minutes. So but congratulations, John, well deserved. Yeah. And can I just say that if you ever think that we don't need to have ACT Environment Awards, there's no doubt that this year's list of nominees reinforces the fact that we absolutely do. And I'm really pleased that we can acknowledge all of those nominees because, you know, I know all of them and they'll just bring so much to this the various things that they're passionate about and the campaigns that they're working on, and they do such great work. So thank you to everybody who was nominated or nominated, and thank you for the contribution that you continue to make. Great. Okay, our last award for the evening is the Conservation Council Member Group of the Year. Do you want me to speak to this one a little bit? Okay, sure. Well, so this is an award that recognises the very valuable role that the Conservation Council's member groups play in their work that they do in the local ACT region. And it's awarded to a Conservation Council member group that has made an outstanding contribution to protecting the local region, to contributing to national and international debates, and to and we actually this is a bit of an in-house award. We give this to one of our member groups. This isn't something that anybody can apply for. This is something that one of our member groups can apply to win. So I'm going to hand over to Rebecca to announce who the winner is this year.
So Russell.
Those envelopes got stuck down for you.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so look, the winner of this award is a group that everyone would be well aware of and the incredible contributions they make, 350 Canberra, for their extensive work in promoting climate action, particularly through their divestment, Stop Adani, activism and Fridays for Future campaigns. So thank you for all of the incredible work in really capturing the imagination of the community and getting people young and old involved in your campaign activities.
Great, well deserved. 350 never stop. They never sleep, they never rest, they never stop. They just keep going. So congratulations, 350. The fight's not over yet. It might be over here in the ACT, even then it's probably not quite over, but there's a bigger fight to be had, and that's one that's coming at us quite soon. So thank you for all that you do. We love having the 350 crowd in the office, preparing all their materials and banners and people coming in to pick things up and drop things off. It makes us a much richer environment for us to work in. So thank you for your contribution. So it's my pleasure to thank Rebecca for announcing tonight's awards. Again, like I say, it's a bit odd doing it all online, but this is the way that it is. And Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming in person and being able to do that. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Shane for, awarding them the last few years. Sorry, you got bumped this year. Sorry about that. And we will be sending those awards to the winners in the next week or so. Hopefully we'll get those to you before Christmas. So congratulations to all of our winners again, and congratulations to all of our nominees. Now, what we're going to do with the rest of the evening is we're going to throw to our two up and coming podcast professionals, Julie Bolton, who is are you on the board at the Environment Centre, Julie? Or
Yep.
Who's a board member at the Environment Centre, and also Ryan Lungu, who is the Executive Director at the Canberra Environment Centre. But more importantly, they are starting to carve themselves out a niche as Canberra's environmental podcasters. So for those of you who hadn't caught up with it, the Environmental Heroes podcast has been running for maybe, 3 months now? Is that about right?
Yep.
And they've ploughed their way through, a good 15 or 16.
We're up to 20.
Goodness me, I'm behind the times. Okay, yeah. 20 in local environmental heroes that they have interviewed. So what we thought we might do tonight is actually get Julie and Ryan to interview our winners and just unpack a little bit about what makes our winners tick, what motivates them, all those sorts of things. I won't preempt the questions too much. This is the more casual end of the evening, but hopefully the one you can sit back, go and grab a glass of wine or a bit of food to eat or something like that and have a listen in. Before I hand over to them, I just want to remind you that it's now 2 hours and 45 minutes until the auction ends. So please do go and check out the prizes. There's some really cool things that you can buy for, the in-laws for Christmas, or buy for your own home, or there's some solar panels, there's some underfloor insulation, which is going cheap last time I checked, get the underfloor insulation. There's some amazingly beautiful artworks, some really Canberra local artworks. And as far as I'm aware, there's still a pallet of toilet paper that was up for grabs. So go get it while it's cheap. Very eco-friendly toilet paper as well. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to Julie and Ryan for the next part of this evening's proceedings, and they can take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Helen. Hi, everyone. Thanks for letting us jump in here and do a live podcast. We are recording it, and we're going to use this as one of our up-and-coming episodes. So we've done 20 episodes. We started off with just an idea, I guess. We had a casual chat one day and said, there's so many amazing stories in Canberra that we need to get out there, and we really want to get them out there. So how could we go and speak to these people and get these stories out there? And Ryan went, well, we'll just go and speak to them and we'll do a podcast, and this is what will happen, and people will listen, and people are listening, and it's great. We're having a lot of fun doing it. Ryan, do you want to explain what we're hoping to achieve from the podcast?
Yeah, definitely. As you were saying, Julie, it's just so many inspiring people around us in Canberra, and none more than actually on this Zoom call. Thank you, Helen and Rebecca. It's been a lovely evening so far. And it really is the ACT Environment Centre's Night of Nights, and we've got the ACT Environmentalist of the Year here and the Young Environmentalist of the Year in the member group. It's really exciting. I think we need to interview everyone that's on this call next season, Julie.
Lucky we're coming back for season 2. Plenty more to do.
Right. But we just really want to know a bit more about our winners, what makes them tick, get some stories out of them so you can enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully inspire you to go about being an environmental hero, which everyone here probably already is, but it's always important to acknowledge and share and be inspired by other people. Hey, Julie?
That's right. And we've got a little list of questions and some ideas of how this is going to go. But in the chat, if there's a particular burning question that anyone has that you'd like to put up there, make sure you put it in and we'll refer to it so we can incorporate that into some of our questions. We have a very hard-hitting journalistic style going on here. We go straight to the source. We don't really. This is more of an informal, friendly chat where, as Ryan said, we're just so super excited and eager to talk to you and let your story come through. So let's go straight to the source. Hey, Ryan?
I think so. And who better to start with than our ACT Environmentalist of the Year, John?
Hi.
Congratulations on your award.
Thank you very much.
John Ive. So you've won your award for your incredible sustainable agricultural practices that you've been pioneering over 40 years, working with nature instead of against it. it's kind of it was probably a very radical practice back then, and it still remains so today. Can you tell us about some of the stuff you do that's a little bit different to the way other people farm and working with the environment and for conservation?
Well, first of all, the farm that we acquired 40 odd years or over 40 years ago was very badly affected with dryland salinity. It had very bad gullies on it and sheet erosion. The native vegetation was more or less moribund. Serrated tussock was about the dominant vegetation on the place. And all in all, it looked pretty much a cot case sort of thing. Well, I had been brought up as a son of a farmer who was dealt with dryland salinity back in the 1950s. And so it wasn't a really daunting task. I bought it with my eyes open, and I called it Talahini, which is Arabic for wait a while, recognizing that while the effort was there from day one, it would take some time before the results were to be seen. And we first of all addressed dryland salinity and developed a few techniques. For instance, we established over 250,000 trees, native trees, on the major recharge areas. And that was done with no more than opening and closing gates at the right time within the El Nino La Nina cycle. And so it wasn't a huge effort. Compare that with the fact that with some areas where there wasn't any seed trees, and we've planted about, I think it's now about 30,000 trees by hand, and that's been an enormous effort, absolutely enormous. Pardon me. And then to address the erosion issue, well, we certainly look to get vegetation over the whole area. And we also put in a series of graded and contour banks to slow water movement across the landscape down, because basically it was coming off the hills, racing down onto the flats, which were the most productive land, and doing the damage. So we put in, I think it was about 3 kilometres of contour and graded banks, which slowed the water down. And in doing that, we also filled the gullies that were on the place. And then, albeit about, 20, 30 years later, those areas, once the water tables in them started to decline or dropped dramatically, quite frankly, in terms of what the process was, we established deep rooting perennial pastures, and they are now our most productive areas, carrying, well, I'd say around 15 DSEs for anyone who's agriculturally literate per hectare, whereas they were pushing to carry 1 when we took the place on. Then we addressed the soil acidity problem, because the soils were very, very acid, down to 3.6 in calcium chloride, which is about the lowest soil can go before it's no longer a soil. And we did that largely by using Canberra sewage ash, which has a liming index, I think, of about 125. And back in the 80s, it was a free product. And that lifted the pH to the order of 5, 5.5 over the areas which we put it. Then we became aware that while biodiversity wasn't a very common term in agriculturalists' minds, I was aware that it was, we were losing all the native vegetation, either from historical reasons of overgrazing, or because, in the case of the trees, from the high incidence of Christmas beetles that were basically defoliating trees. And so we set about addressing biodiversity issues in terms of the trees we planted to give more, while we selected initially locally area native species to just broaden the range. And while we didn't target directly Christmas beetles, I can say that we haven't seen a Christmas beetle or a sawfly larvae for, I don't know, 20 years or more now. So we've all the trees which were looking very moribund are now coming back to life, or 20, 30 years ago came back to life. And we've fenced out over a third of the place where no domestic stock goes. I think it's about 35%. And that actually provides, to use the term jargon, the ecosystem services, which then means the rest of the place is far more productive. And we've increased the stock carrying capacity by an order of magnitude on the place. And the product we produce, which my main interest is in ultrafine wool, is world beating. For instance, we sold back in June, and we got the top prices for the whole of Australia for the selling week. And one of those prices was the fourth top price for the whole year. Well, I don't know how much more you want to know.
That sounds like a lot of work, John, and it sounds like you're very well deserving of your award this evening. It's a lot of years and a lot of work. We might just get you to finish off by telling us what inspired you to do things a little bit differently back then when you started this journey.
Oh, certainly. Like as good as it might seem, I've made mistakes, but there's been a couple of important things that I've done along the line. And one is, and it's not my words, but adopting the phrase, if you don't measure it or monitor it, you can't manage it. And so we basically measure everything on the place. And by the same token, there's no point measuring things if you don't do something with the results you get from measuring, because it's a waste of time. But to give you some idea, we've got a network of piezometers on the place to measure the depth of the water table, and they've been measured weekly for over 30 years. And that's the longest sequence of piezometer measurements anywhere in Australia, I would believe actually anywhere in the world. And that has given me insights into the movement of water tables, but not only do we measure the depth of the water table, but also the salinity level in it. And for instance, when we started out, many of the piezometers, even in the middle of February, the driest time of the year, were overflowing the tops of the piezometers. The water table was pushing up. Well, now we've got some of them are down 15 metres, and even with all the rain we've had recently, are not got any water in them, 15 metres down. And that's because we're being able to identify the major recharge areas, which were basically like a gravel drain, and the water just went in and in at up to 300 millimetres an hour, whereas rainfall, might be 30 millimetres an hour if you're lucky. And we were able to plant trees on those areas, which are now major, 10 metres or so tall, and actually dry out the profile, so the profile can then hold these extreme rainfall events and don't add to the deep drainage. The salinity levels were around 7 to 10,000 EC units. It's now down to better than, well, certainly better than Yasser's drinking water, but around about 150 EC units. So it's just dramatic change and difference. And likewise, I could go say the same thing about biodiversity. It's far, far better. And then the last major thing, which has been verified by external researchers, over the last 40 plus years, we've sequestered over 11 times as much carbon as our total animal emissions and on-farm energy use, which out of, I think it's the order of something like 500 farms have been audited. We are certainly the extreme ones.
That's
wow, John, this is impressive. It's a super impressive story you're telling us. I think there's lots of statistics in there that I'd love to unpack and have on a graph going, look at all of this amazing work that's taken 40 years to get to this stage, right? But it's amazing. I want to move to Jessica, like we're going to go from oldest to youngest maybe. Jessica, I'm really interested, like you might be around the same age as John when John first got into changing the world he sees around him. So Jess, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do in the food space?
Yeah, for sure. Well, basically, I've been coordinating a New South Wales EPA grant-funded project across regional New South Wales. And basically, it's all about getting excess food from supermarkets out of landfill and into those local food relief agencies. So yeah, it's across a couple of councils, mostly southeast New South Wales. So eight of those councils within the Canberra region, basically. Yeah.
And you've got a really interesting background. I was reading that you actually have a background in international development, which is similar to what I studied back in the day.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you can talk to us a little bit about like why get into this food waste space and why do it in Australia if you'd studied looking at these issues, maybe looking at these issues overseas. Like what drove you to go, you know what, there's an issue here in my neighbourhood that I'm going to address?
Yeah, well, I guess so last July, I graduated from the ANU in international relations, and it was very nerdy, lots of theory, and sort of went over my head a little bit. And so it was sort of nice to get back into the real world and actually do something practical. And I find that with my volunteering work with Trash Gather as well, it's very hands-on, which is really grounding. And I think in terms of development, I think it's easy to sort of just picture the world in terms of, all these things going on with poverty and, food insecurity and whatnot. It's so easy just to be like, oh, that's happening, in another country, or even to have a bit of a white saviorism attitude towards it and, be like, oh, we're okay in Australia, because we're a first world country, whatever that means. And so I think it's easy to fall into that trap. And so bringing it back to that local scale is really important because there's actually, a lot going on, even in Canberra with rising costs and whatnot. There's a lot happening here in a local scale. And so, yeah.
I really like that take there where you talk about proactive and what you can do here at a local scale, because I feel that's John, that's exactly what you've been doing. Like, what can I do in my own, literally in my own backyard to improve my own backyard? And that's what you're both doing. Ryan, over to you for the next question though.
Yes, and so we just want to also congratulate our member group winner, which is 350, and representing them here tonight is Kathy. Do we have Kathy Rossiter with us?
Yes, indeed you do.
Ah, fantastic. Thank you very much, Kathy. And maybe just could you start by telling us a little bit about 350? How many members do you have in Canberra and what kind of activities do you get up to?
It's a fluid group. It's been operating for about 6 or 7 years in Canberra. As many people would know, Bill McKibben started the first 350 group in America, but based on the fact that 350 parts per million was seen as the maximum amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And we're now significantly over 400 parts already. So the group's formed in Canberra, and we've had various groups within that overarching group. So we've had the people who've been working on the Stop Adani campaign, which has kind of expanded into stopping gas and all coal. We've also helped out with the school climate strikes. We've done a wide range of things in terms of holding our politicians to account. Many of you might have noticed that on certain sitting mornings of Parliament, there's a bunch of us at the back of Parliament House on Melbourne Avenue with banners and posters, really to remind the politicians as they come to work that we're not going away and that this problem is not going to go away, and we will continue to remind them of it. So that's what we call our Polywatch. We also have the group that's called the Fridays for the Future, which has been going for a while. There's overlap between all of these groups, and It started off by a group that started meeting across the road from the lodge on Canberra Avenue when on Friday mornings to again remind Canberrans as they were driving to work that what this is all about. And we've now expanded that to being in civic on alternate weeks. And now with the election coming up, we're actually focusing our attention on the folks coming into Canberra to work. So being out on Canberra Avenue at Fishwick, and we will probably go out to the Barton Highway and Pialigo Avenue, etc., to encourage people coming in from Queanbeyan and the surrounds about the importance of climate change, particularly in the lead up to the next election. So it's a wide-ranging group, I have to say.
Yeah, that's a lot of work going on, Kathy, and thankless and often tireless work. So we're here to thank you and all of 350 tonight. I'm wondering if there's been, if there was a special moment this year that was a good win for you, something that stood out where you thought we were making some progress.
Tricky one. Probably actually going back a year, we were running a campaign against the engineering company GHD, which is largely owned, fortunately, by its employees, but they were in the frame for dealing with Adani and providing engineering services to the Adani coal mine in Queensland. And along with other similar campaign groups around the country, we stood outside their offices every Friday morning for, I think it was something like 24, 25 weeks, with banners and posters and pamphlets and taking opportunities where they presented to talk to staff going into the building to remind them that this was not in coherence with their sustainability plan, and that this was their own children and grandchildren's future that they were mucking around with. So they were, in the end, I think internal pressures forced them, and they said they would not work with Adani. But so, and so many financial organisations have pulled out, as have insurance companies. So we think we've had quite a lot of wins along the way.
Kathy, one thing I love about 350.org and the Conservation Council and all of its member groups is that there's something, I guess, in there for everyone. Like, you must have a whole range of different people that are working in 350.org. And I think that's fascinating and ace in how inclusive it is. Can you talk to us about just the range of people that you have who come to you and how they can find different things that excite them and spark them to get involved?
Yeah, indeed. I think you could safely say we have an enormous range of skills. The core of the group, I guess, is made up of people who are no longer in the workforce, but those people range from engineers and scientists and teachers and public servants and all sorts of other people who know how the system works and who are prepared to really be passionate about what they do. And we have a number of young people, and we've met a number of them, particularly through the school climate strikes and others who come to our meetings. And we have also a huge range of skills, because some of us have strengths in writing submissions and preparing correspondence, and others go to the Artivism group and prepare banners and posters. So, and others will front up with hanging up those banners in the most extraordinary positions. So we'll welcome anybody, so long as they've got a passion for making a difference about climate change.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathy. And really something that Julie and I care a lot about talking about in the Environmental Heroes podcast, we've always asked the same set of questions to each of our guests, and we've had some incredible guests. But one of our favorite questions is asking people how they see the world in 2030, imagining that we're 9 years, almost 8 years as it'll be ahead now, and to hear what you see around you, what you imagine, because I guess there's a potential positive future and there's a negative future, but unless we think about where we're going to get to, then we can't put in the work. Then maybe we'll ask, what do you reckon? Who should we ask first, Julie?
I think we're going to go to Jess. Over to you, Jess. What do you see in 2030?
Lucky best. Look, it's hard to like decide whether to be a pessimist or an optimist, but I think generally I'm pretty balanced. So I think in 2030, I mean, I think millennials and Gen Z, if they have kids at that point, they might be telling them about the age of COVID and while driving around in their electric cars. And I think America might have a female president. Who knows? Australia might even stop subsidizing fossil fuels by then, hopefully. So I think, you know, there's going to be big changes in the world. But then I think there is something inside of me which still says people are still going to be caring more about the iPhone 60 or iPhone, whatever number will be at by then, than their neighbors. And so I think whilst we might be, you know, looking towards hopefully systemic change, I think, you know, there's always going to be things like greed and, you know, there's always going to be power and privilege. And so unless 350 stop their amazing work, then things might go a little bit sideways. But I feel so hopeful as well because of people like 350 and school strikers and all of those amazing people. I feel like very positive as well. So I'm a bit conflicted, but you sort of have to stay positive.
We all are.
Yeah, I think you have to stay positive because otherwise you're just not really helping anyone.
Totally. In fact, I think you should listen to Rebecca Vassarotti on the podcast where I think she says something exactly like that, positivity is the way to go and hope. John, how about you? 2030, what does it mean for you? What does it look like for John?
Well, given I'll be nudging 90, I most probably have a different outlook on things, but I'm hoping that we have a far more responsive government in power, and what's more, I hope we don't have to wait till 2030 for that to come about, and I hope that we are well and truly on the way to being carbon neutral as a country, and I also hope that the world is well down that track too. And I also like to think that we are addressing what I regard as the gross inequality that is developing, and it's developing rapidly. And I just don't think, I think that cuts off so much of our human resources in terms of opportunity and that type of thing. And I hope that we have while I encourage diversity in communities and people and all that sort of thing, I hope that we have a very diverse community that doesn't have the divisions and that we currently have. And we have people able to talk logically and sensibly across what are now seen as barriers without being ridiculed and that. I just think that's counterproductive. So that's my lot. And I only hope I can be here in 2030.
I think we all do too, John.
Thank you.
And Kathy, what do you see around you in the year 2030?
Well, I think it's going to be a bit hotter. And we're going to see more extreme weather events around the world. And we're going to see some famines in some parts of the world. And all of that is extremely scary. I think there's going to be a much greater recognition of the climate change threat, but I think we're also going to see a lot of people will be very angry at the lack of action. Hopefully that's actually leads to good outcomes. It's only 9 years away, and I think we're probably living in the most important decade in human history. And if we as a human race don't address this with the seriousness that it deserves, then 2030, which is not very far away, will give us a very good indication of how it's going to play out for the rest of the century. and what it will mean for our children and grandchildren. And I personally want them to have a much better future than that.
Yeah, I think we all do. And it's because of the great work that's happening in this room and outside of it that is making it all possible. And you guys are an inspiration to all of us to keep trying. But because it matters was something that really stuck with me that someone said in one of our podcasts, one of the guests, I think it was about why do you streamline your business to be sustainable? And it was simply said, because it matters. And I think that sums up why all of us are doing this work and why, yeah, we've got these great people that we're celebrating here tonight. Another thing we like to ask our fabulous guests on the podcast is a hot tip for the listeners, or in this case, for the whole room. How can we be more environmentally friendly? What's the most important thing that we can do? A hot tip. We might go back to the start with Jessica again, if you don't mind, Jess.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I guess there's two approaches there, because there's the more personal side, which is quite, individual, where you might want to look at your own lifestyle and whether that's doing a bin audit or maybe reflecting on, your car usage or, just like little things like that. And you might want to find those easy wins. So that might mean recycling soft plastics at Coles, or that might mean, composting, or whatever the easy win is. Just find something that excites you and leverage that. So there's that sort of personal approach. And then there's also the more systemic approach, which is sort of obviously a bit harder for, people like me and you to sort of figure out. But I think educating yourself is so important, whether that's, just reading books or history, or just, talking to people and, finding like-minded people who share your passions is going to really kick off something bigger in your community, which could lead to systemic change. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love in terms of educating yourself, for those of you on the call who don't already follow Sarah Reid on Twitter or on LinkedIn, I'd suggest you all do that, because Sarah's, as we said in the podcast when we interviewed Sarah, one of her genius things at life is that she is so good at finding things, what's going on, and sharing it and going, you have to read this, or everyone look at this, or here's a bit of information that is out there. And I think I've learned so much from what Sarah puts up there and what she's sharing and the information that's out there, and just educating myself on things that are happening. So yeah, I think totally being aware of what is going on and not being scared to find out stuff, I think, is also really important. John, what about you? What's your hot tip that you want to leave us with?
Well, I agree with what Jessica said, but I'd like to just add or summarise my views, is that we should be focused more on need rather than greed, which, and I think advertising has a fair component to input into that in a negative way at present. And the second thing is I'd like to be seeking prosperity without growth. And I think that those two bylines, or whatever you like to say, would certainly be very good for the world.
Yeah, very good. Very well said. Kathy, how about you?
Well, I endorse what the other two have both said, but I think it's really important for us all to remind ourselves that we can't just leave it for other people to do. And, it's been said before that things change when people turn up. And I think it's really important that we don't leave these things to small groups of activists. This is a community-wide issue. And to the extent that it's possible for each of us, I think we should each get involved.
I think that's a wonderful way to sum things up, Kathy. And I also think it comes back to what Jess said about doing things with people whose company you enjoy. There's so many great member groups of the Conservation Council of 350 amongst and at the top of tonight, but there's so many different ways to get involved. Lots of people in this room already would be involved, but yeah, lots of inspiration here. What do you reckon, Julie? Should we hand back to Helen and Rebecca? Or do you have any more questions for our panel?
Unless anyone else has got any other questions. If not, we'll hand over the mics again. Thank you, everyone. That was great.
Oh, but do you think maybe we should Should we get a slogan out of each of them? That's how we like to end the podcast usually, Julie. Maybe if it can be a short, quick slogan to live your life by, to inspire others by, we'll keep with the order, but something to leave us with. And congratulations again. Thank you.
Ryan, I think you're looking for the mic drop moment.
Let's have it. Yeah, or a freeze screen, maybe. A screen freeze. Please, Jess. Thanks.
So much pressure on the spot. Oh my gosh. Well, I really liked what Kathy was saying about getting involved. So yeah, that's my hot take, is just get involved, get positive, get hyped, because, we need energy and we need to stay motivated, especially, during things like COVID. We really need to stay on the ball. So I don't have a rhyme or any sort of poetry, but that'll.
I think that's pretty clear. And yes, thank you. Jess, what would you leave us with, John? Your final, a mantra or a slogan to inspire us with?
Sorry, was that for me?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, in my impressionable years back in the 60s, I remember JFK's statement at his inauguration along the lines, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I'd like to widen the horizon there a bit and put that to the world. Ask not what the world can do for you, ask what you can do for the world. And we need to work like that rather than being very isolated.
I feel that's John, that's pretty much how you've lived your life, right? Like, you've taken a farm and you've looked at the farm, and I was thinking when you were talking about all the things you've done on the farm, you could have just as easily packed up your bags and moved to another farm where you potentially didn't have all of those problems. But instead you looked at the farm and said, well, this is my backyard and I'm going to fix the farm. Like, ask what I can do for this farm here, which is amazing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. In fact, a lot of people think I was crazy to ever take it on, but those very same people these days, I think, hold a slightly different view, put it that way.
Well, now look at you. You're Canberra Environmentalist of the Year. Wouldn't have happened if you'd moved elsewhere. Yeah. Well, it might have. Kathy, what about you?
Very well deserving.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's lots of things that could be said, particularly about the fact we've got the tools and we should use them. But I think I would want to say, this is the decade, don't waste it.
And we're out.
Beautiful. Yep, that's our mic drop. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Julie. We'll go back to Helen and Rebecca.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Ryan, for doing a wonderful job on that. I hope that we get to hear that podcast soon. That was great. And thank you again to our winners, Jess, Kathy, and John, and Kathy on behalf of 350. And congratulations again for the work that you do. I can see Annie up in the top corner of my screen, our last year's winner. Hi, Annie. Lovely to see you there. You're all incredibly inspiring. And I think that's what it means to be part of a wider movement that actually is very much focused on a very singular outcome, and we may come at it from different angles, and we may do different things, and we may contribute in different ways. But even Julie and Ryan are contributing in their way that they do. I mean, Ryan does an amazing job at the Environment Centre. Julie works on sustainable development goals. So the podcast is just what they do in their sort of free time, maybe a little bit. But I know that everybody on this call is really focused on getting the best outcomes, for our climate, for our biodiversity, and for our sustainability. So thank you, everybody, to the work that you do. There's nobody that's here that doesn't contribute in some way, and very much often at the expense of, your own free time and the other things that you might be doing with your life, that you might not have thought this is what you were going to do with your life, but it is, because, as Kathy says, clock is ticking. We only have a short window in which to turn things around. So thank you for contributing to a very positive evening. It's been great. We've really enjoyed having you along. I'm going to say it again because it's my job to raise a little bit of money for the Conservation Council. For a living, I get to talk to politicians such as Rebecca and others, and government officials, and And also the community. We love talking to the community about what they think, and to our member groups about what they value and what policies they want to bring to the table. And those are the policies that we work very, very hard to take to the ACT government. And sometimes when I reflect on why I do this job, I think, you know, the ACT is doing pretty well on the environment, you know, compared to some places in Australia, doing very well compared to some places overseas. But I always think that it's really crucial that where we have the capacity, where we have the thinking, the great ideas and the resources and the finances, we're a very lucky community. We live a very high quality of life here in Canberra. We actually have a responsibility to take action faster, quicker, stronger. We have a responsibility to try out new ideas, to go harder, to see if they work, to see if they don't work, so that then other people around the country and around the world can point to us and say, look what they're doing there in Canberra, look. And we know that's already happening. So with the ACT getting off gas, we know Victoria is pointing to Canberra going, look what they're doing in Canberra, they're getting off gas. This is going to happen here too one day. And without the leaders, it's harder for those that follow and those that are living in places where their governments are more backwards, or where the financial pressures are higher, or where the industries are dependent more on mining. So, you know, while it's easy to negate the impact that we can have both nationally and globally, the impact can be significant, and we actually need to keep holding that up as a model of best practice so that we can go forward that way. It's really powerful work, but it's only powerful if we resonate it around the country and if we resonate it around the planet. And that's what we need to do with the work that we're doing here in the ACT. Of course, we're also the home of federal government. And so there's just, you know, there's just get the stick out and keep banging the drum and just keep going, because eventually it will change, because the challenge of climate change isn't getting any smaller. And you'd think they'd know by now that the political damage that they wreak from not responding properly, you know, you think that they would have actually got their houses in order and come up with some good policies by now, because the challenge is not going away, the momentum will only grow and the urgency will only increase. So the work we do is really important. That's my long way of saying, don't forget to get online, look at the auction. If you're looking for a gift-free Christmas, and out of the goodness of your heart, you'd just like to make a donation to the Cons Council's work, we'd really appreciate that too. And you can do that through the auction website. It doesn't have to be about stuff, but we like to think that most of our stuff on the website is reasonably eco-friendly, if not awesomely eco-friendly. So do get on and have a look. I would like to just thank all of our special guests tonight. I'd like to start by thanking Minister Rebecca Vassarotti, who's sitting next to me, for her contribution in coming along this evening. I know she's had a busy weekend. Things are very busy at this time of the year, I'm sure, with lots of events, but coming along on a Sunday evening. I'd also like to thank Julie and Ryan for your contribution. I'd like to thank our other MLAs who've actually had to leave early. And also a big thank you to Maddie Clegg for coming on board and helping us to organise this event. Maddie's one of our staff members who returned to do a bit of work organising the event for us. We've missed her so much this year since she left, but it's been lovely to have her back for a few weeks. So thank you to you, Maddie. Thank you to all of my staff, who I know some of them are sitting online quietly listening, for the contribution that you've made to tonight's event as well. On that note, I'll wrap up. Huge congratulations to our winners and our nominees. And also thank you so much to Philippa. I'm so glad you're able to join us, Philippa Rowland from South Australia, for your contribution today. It's been lovely to put a face to the voice. We've had some great conversations on the phone, but it's lovely to see your face. So we hope to see you in the ACT soon. And on that note, we're going to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for your contribution, and we'll see you in the new year. Have a great, relaxing, restorative holiday. I hope everything goes smoothly, and that there's no, what is it, New Year's Eve dramas about having to run back to a certain state or escape a bushfire or whatever it is. We actually just all need a bit of a break and a bit of a rest. So please take the time to restore yourselves and your energy, because the fight will come back and keep fighting next year. Have a great Christmas and New Year. We'll see you in 2022. And I'm gonna quietly there. All righty, I'm going to end that.